when we talked about nervous tissue during our tissue unit, we split the nervous system up into, this is my nervous system little flow chart here. We split it up into either neurons, which are the actual functional unit of the nervous system. That's the nervous system cells. And we split it up into supporting cells. And those supporting cells were called glial cells. We added an L, but one cell, or glial cells, and glia are pretty much just different versions of the word. We had glial cells and we had neurons. All of these cells here that are listed are glial cells, and they are basically the support system for the nervous system. And there are different names for them, of course. There's a lot of different types. Not a whole lot of research is done, or not a whole lot of information is known about some of these. It's a big part of research for brain cancers and those kinds of things. But all of these listed here are support for the neurons. So these two work really closely together, and they each have a job. The first one is an astrocyte, and it is star-shaped, which is where the stem astro comes from. They are large cells. They're numerous. There's many of these in kind of around the neurons. And what they do is they're going to connect the neurons to capillaries. Remember, which are the smallest vessels in the body, blood vessels in the body. Connect the neurons to capillaries. And they're going to transfer nutrients. To the neurons. So the neurons are the actual functioning unit of the nervous system. And so how do we get nutrients to that? It's gotta supply it with nutrients. You've got to give it the food that it needs in order to work. And the way that happens is by these astrocytes. And they're going to connect those neurons to the capillaries. Okay, the second one is called microglia. Micro means small. And their main job is phagocytosis, which, if you remember from our tissue unit, is cell eating. And they're going to help to break down some of those foreign things that come into the brain or into the spinal cord to help eat up those cells that need to go away and clean up the area. The next one, you can say it two ways. I'm going to say ependymal because that's how it looks, and that's how I've always heard it pronounced. But I've also heard it pronounced ependymal. Ependymal or ependymal. You'll hear it either way. The ependymal cells are going to make and circulate cerebrospinal fluid. Okay, you've got to have cerebrospinal fluid in the nervous system. And when I teach the brain, I'll tell you more about that. Okay, this next one is called oligodendrocyte. You say it exactly how it looks. And oligodendrocytes are only going to be found in the central nervous system. Okay, abbreviated CNS. And they're going to make the myelin sheath. I'm going to tell you what myelin sheath is in the next video. So just write it now, worry about it later. So make the myelin sheath in the central nervous system, in the brain and in the spinal cord. The Schwann cells are going to make the myelin sheath in the peripheral nervous system. So Schwann cells are only found in the peripheral nervous system, and they also make myelin sheath. And the last one is going to be the satellite cells, and they are going to surround and support the main part of the neuron, and the main part of the neuron is called the cell body, and their job is to kind of support it. It's, of course, all of these together are support cells, but when we are only supporting just that cell body of the neuron, the main part of a nervous system cell, it's called a satellite cell. So these surround and support the cell bodies of the neuron. And then finally, if we're not talking about the support cells, if we're not talking about the glial cells, we're talking about neurons. And the neurons are excitable, meaning that they can have an impulse travel through them, and they are going to be that functional unit, that cell of the nervous system. So just like muscles had their own structure, they have their own muscle cell, cardiac muscle cells, smooth muscle cells. They all had that actin and myosin in it. Some other kinds of cells have different shapes. Neurons are going to look weird. Okay? They're not going to look like muscle cells because they don't have to act like muscle cells. And so a cell of a nervous system is just called a neuron. All right, you're going to need some colors for the next video. So you're going to get 3 different colors, and we are going to go to the worksheet that says Neuron Classification. Okay, so go get 3 colors, and then we'll be ready for the next video.